The first siren wailed just as Marcus Hale stepped out of the courthouse. It cut through the late afternoon air, sharp and urgent, echoing off concrete walls and glass windows. Marcus paused, squinting against the sun, adjusting the strap of his worn leather bag on his shoulder. He had just finished a deposition that dragged longer than expected, one more delay in a life that always seemed to be waiting for something to finally settle. Across the street, reporters clustered near the steps, their cameras idle, waiting for a different story. Marcus walked past them unnoticed, blending into the stream of office workers and lawyers spilling onto the sidewalk. Then someone shouted his name. Marcus Hale. He turned instinctively. At that exact moment, the explosion tore through the west wing of the courthouse. The blast threw him forward. Heat slammed into his back. Glass rained down like shrapnel. The sound swallowed everything else, a violent roar that seemed to rip the air apart. Marcus hit the pavement hard, his bag skidding across the sidewalk. For several seconds, there was nothing but ringing in his ears. When the noise faded enough for the world to return, chaos had taken its place. People screamed. Smoke poured from shattered windows. Alarms shrieked from inside the building. Someone nearby lay motionless, blood pooling beneath them. Marcus pushed himself up, coughing, his hands shaking. "Stay down," someone yelled. He looked at his palms. They were scraped and bleeding. His suit was torn, dusted with ash and debris. He stood there, stunned, trying to understand what had just happened. That was when he saw the police. They came fast, too fast. Squad cars screeched to a halt along the curb. Officers poured out with weapons raised, shouting commands that overlapped and collided. "Hands up. Hands where we can see them." Marcus froze. An officer pointed directly at him. "You, don't move." "I didn't do anything," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "I was just walking." "Hands up," another officer barked. He raised them slowly. His heart hammered so hard it hurt. Then he noticed the cameras. Every reporter had turned. Lenses locked onto him. Microphones lifted. Someone shouted his name again, louder this time, urgent, hungry. An officer stepped forward and kicked his leather bag aside. It burst open. Something metal clattered onto the sidewalk. The crowd gasped. Marcus stared in disbelief. A remote detonator lay near his feet. He felt the world tilt. "That's not mine," he said weakly. "I've never seen that before." No one listened. They slammed him to the ground, cuffed his hands behind his back, pressed his face into the concrete while smoke curled upward behind him. Someone read him his rights. Someone else snapped photos. By nightfall, his face was everywhere. Local attorney arrested in courthouse bombing. Marcus sat alone in a cold interrogation room, his jacket gone, his wrists raw from cuffs. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second stretching longer than the last. Detective Ryan Cole stood on the other side of the table, arms crossed, eyes sharp but unreadable. "Remote detonator in your bag," Ryan said calmly. "Witnesses place you at the scene. Motive tied to your work. You want to explain that?" Marcus leaned forward. "I was set up." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "By who?" Marcus hesitated. A face flickered in his mind. A familiar smile. A voice he had known his entire life. "I need a lawyer," Marcus said finally. Ryan nodded and stood. Probably a good idea. Hours later, Marcus was transferred to a holding cell. The concrete bench was hard. The lights never dimmed. He replayed the moment again and again, trying to find the point where everything had gone wrong. The bag. He never let that bag out of his sight. Except that morning. Across the city, in a penthouse apartment overlooking the river, Ethan Hale watched the news in silence. Marcus's face filled the screen, bruised, shocked, unmistakable. Ethan lifted his glass slowly and took a sip. "Unbelievable," the anchor said. "Sources say the suspect is the victim's own brother." Ethan smiled faintly. He muted the television and walked to the window. Below, the city glowed with indifferent lights, traffic flowing like nothing had changed. He had imagined this moment for years. Marcus had always been the golden one, the responsible one, the brother their father trusted, the one people admired. Ethan had lived in his shadow. Not anymore. He picked up his phone and typed a message, then deleted it. Some victories were better enjoyed quietly. Back at the detention center, Marcus lay awake on the bench, staring at the ceiling. It didn't make sense. Someone had known his schedule, known where he would be standing, known he carried that bag everywhere, known exactly when to slip something inside. Only a handful of people had access to his apartment that morning. His assistant, his building concierge, and his brother. The thought made his chest tighten. Ethan had been acting strange lately. Too friendly, too eager to help, offering rides, dropping by unannounced. Marcus had brushed it off. Family was family. Now he wasn't so sure. The door to the holding area buzzed. An officer opened it. "Marcus Hale," he said. "You've got a visitor." Marcus stood slowly, hope and dread colliding in his chest. He followed the officer down the hallway, each step heavy, his mind racing. Who would believe him? Who would listen? Who would dare go against the story already cemented in headlines and public opinion? As he entered the visiting room, Marcus made a silent promise to himself. If he got out of this, he would uncover the truth, even if the truth wore his brother's face. And somewhere, in the glow of a city that had already decided his guilt, the real crime was just beginning. Marcus did not sleep that night. The holding cell never truly went quiet. Somewhere down the corridor, someone kept pacing. A man shouted in his sleep. Metal doors slammed at irregular intervals, sharp enough to jolt Marcus every time his eyes began to close. But it was not the noise that kept him awake. It was the certainty settling in his chest. This had not been an accident. It had not been random. Someone had planned this with precision, patience, and an intimate knowledge of his life. By morning, the news had hardened into a single narrative. Marcus Hale, respected attorney. Marcus Hale, disgruntled insider. Marcus Hale, prime suspect. By the time he was escorted into court for his preliminary hearing, protesters lined the sidewalk. Some held signs demanding justice for the victims. Others held phones, live streaming his walk in chains. A woman shouted that he should rot in prison. Someone else threw a half-empty coffee cup that burst against the pavement near his feet. Marcus kept his head up, but each step felt heavier than the last. Inside the courtroom, the air felt thick. The judge barely looked at him. The prosecutor spoke with rehearsed confidence, laying out evidence that sounded damning when stacked neatly together. Security footage placing Marcus near the West Wing. Witnesses claiming they saw him pacing nervously. The detonator found in his bag. Financial records suggesting recent stress. None of it was false on its own. That was the most terrifying part. His court-appointed attorney leaned toward him and whispered, "We'll argue bail, but don't expect much." The judge denied bail without hesitation. Marcus was led away before he could process the words. 2 days later, Detective Ryan Cole sat alone in his office, staring at the evidence board. He had worked enough high-profile cases to know when something felt too clean. The bomb had been sophisticated but not overly complex. Whoever planted it knew what they were doing, but they had also wanted it to be found. The detonator placed in Marcus's bag was almost theatrical. Too perfect. Too obvious. Ryan flipped through Marcus's file again. No criminal history. No extremist ties. No violent past. Plenty of ambition, sure. Some professional enemies. But nothing that screamed mass casualty attack. Ryan leaned back and exhaled slowly. Then he noticed something he had overlooked before. A visitor log. Marcus's apartment building required sign-ins for guests. The morning of the bombing, only one non-resident had entered his apartment. Ethan Hale. Ryan stared at the name. He pulled up Ethan's file. Younger brother. Successful entrepreneur. Clean public image. And then Ryan saw the photo. The resemblance was undeniable. Same jawline. Same eyes. One wore tension openly. The other hid it behind polish. Ryan tapped his pen against the desk. Across town, Ethan Hale attended a charity gala. He stood beneath crystal chandeliers, laughing easily, accepting condolences for what he called this terrible family tragedy. Cameras loved him. He spoke softly, shook his head sadly, thanked everyone for their concern. Marcus would never hurt anyone, he told a reporter. "I just hope the truth comes out." The words sounded sincere, perfectly timed, perfectly delivered. Later that night, alone in his apartment, Ethan loosened his tie and poured himself a drink. He replayed the footage of Marcus being led away in cuffs, not because he enjoyed the image, but because he wanted to remember how it felt to finally be seen. Growing up, Marcus had been the responsible one, the dependable one. When their father fell ill, Marcus stepped up. When mistakes were made, Ethan paid the price. Every praise had Marcus's name attached to it. Ethan had learned early that fairness was a story people told themselves. He finished his drink and checked his phone. A message blinked on the screen. Unknown number. He smiled. Back in the detention center, Marcus met the first person who believed him. Her name was Lila Moreno, a public defender assigned temporarily due to the case's profile. She was sharp, direct, and unimpressed by headlines. "You're being framed," she said after their first meeting, not as a question but a statement. Marcus stared at her. You believe that? I believe the evidence wants me to believe you're guilty, she replied, which usually means someone worked very hard to make it look that way. Hope flickered, fragile but real. They began to work quietly. Lila requested phone records, building logs, maintenance reports, anything that could establish access to Marcus's bag. Meanwhile, Ryan Cole pushed forward on his own thread. He interviewed the concierge again. Ethan Hale was here that morning, the man confirmed. Said he was stopping by to borrow something. Did he leave with anything? Ryan asked. The concierge hesitated. Just his jacket, I think. Ryan nodded and made a note. Then he pulled the bomb technician's report. The detonator bore partial prints, smudged but not erased. Ryan compared them. They did not match Marcus. 2 days later, Ryan stood outside Ethan Hale's office building, watching employees filter in and out. He was not ready to confront Ethan yet, not until he had something solid. Inside his cell, Marcus received another visitor. This time, it was his mother. She sat across from him, eyes red, hands trembling. I don't understand, she whispered. How could this happen? Marcus swallowed hard. I didn't do this. She nodded slowly. I know. Relief washed over him, sharp and unexpected. Ethan says he's trying to help, she added. Marcus's chest tightened. Be careful, he said quietly. Please. She frowned, confused, but nodded again. That night, Marcus lay awake, staring into the dark. He realized something then. This wasn't just about escaping prison. Someone had died. Families had been destroyed. And the person responsible was still free, walking comfortably through a city that believed his lie. If Marcus survived this, he would not stop at clearing his name. He would expose everything, even if it meant tearing his own family apart. And somewhere above him, in penthouses and courtrooms and newsrooms, the lie continued to grow stronger, feeding on silence. But cracks were forming, and soon, they would no longer be ignored.